The anime begins by introducing us to a man named Taichi Tanaka, who is 38 years old and a huge fan of video games. He discovered a video game and began creating his own character. The man names his character Earth, who will be the protagonist of our story. At that moment, he thinks that because of his office job, he can only play 2 hours a day, so he thinks it's best to play as alone as possible. He also selects the worst skills available in the game, as he wants to go unnoticed. As if that weren't enough, he ended up choosing the profession of archer, since it's the one he fails at the most, and combined with the worst skills, it's practically impossible for him to attract the attention of the players. After finishing configuring the character, Earth narrates that this game is very different from traditional ones, since there are no set missions and people can walk freely around the world, or they can dedicate themselves to different professions such as blacksmithing and other things. As Earth walked through the city, he realized that the first day was crowded, and just as a girl called out to him because she noticed he was new, a golden knight bumped into him. At that moment, the knight began to mock him, since Earth had chosen the worst category as a character. So, after being humiliated, the knight's group immediately withdrew. Earth thinks he got off to a good start, since he could have been so unlucky as to cross paths with such a strong knight. After a while, Earth arrived at the training field, and at first, he couldn't even land a single hit, but after 100 throws, it went up to level 5. He also explains that he improved his level of other skills. As the hours passed, Earth decided it was finally time to go out and fight, since he had what he needed to survive. But seeing the long queues to kill the monsters, he preferred to go and look for herbs. However, when he did, he realized that his analytical skills didn't even allow him to identify simple plants, as his level was still very low. And as the days passed, Earth explained that he managed to raise his level of medicine and now knows how to identify the basic plants. Furthermore, he is worried because he found a herb that kills people after they consume it, so he wonders what the hell is going on in that game. On the other hand, Earth explains that instead of using the money he started the game with to buy equipment, he spent it on something else, preferring to buy enough materials to make potions. However, he thinks that many NPCs sell them, so he will have to improve their quality if he wants people to be interested in his product. So he thinks that the best thing to do will be to go hunting. Earth arrived at his home field and realized that all the adventurers had finally left the area. So this is their big opportunity to hunt. And then a rabbit horn appeared in the place. Earth tried to attack it, but after the first arrow he missed, and the creature, very furious, lunged at Earth. But he managed to hit the arrow in its foot and immediately kicked it, which eliminated the creature. After the rabbit was defeated, it gave him a dry-ass piece of meat and fur, and Earth immediately thought that he seemed to be much better with its kicks. At that moment, 2 adventurers named Zwei and Millie arrived. We just see that Zwei started laughing at Earth, since he had never heard of a rabbit making such a strange noise when it died. Earth, seeing that he didn't stop, asked him if he was Kevin Hart. But he did let him know that he liked him very much, and after formally introducing himself to the boy, they asked him if he could request to be his friend. After accepting their request, the boys leave and Earth thinks he needs to gain more experience, since it took him a long time to defeat a simple monster. Next, Earth headed towards another target and used his wind magic to finish it off. He realized that magic was effective, but he needed to think about hiding better, so he remembered that he had his stealth ability and decided to try it on a third monster, and it worked effectively. We see Earth log off the game at that moment, as it is too late and he has to go to work. The next day, Earth went in again, and after tasting some bread, he realized that it didn't taste good at all. So he went somewhere else, and after buying several condiments, he started cooking the rabbit meat he had hunted. After several attempts at cooking a rabbit steak, the aroma from Earth's kitchen began to reach all the citizens, driving them crazy with how delicious it smelled. Just as Earth finished his dish, he realized that there were many people behind him asking for some. Earth got nervous, so he took the opportunity to let her know that he would charge $100 for each steak he sold, since that was 20 times the price of the bread sold by the NPCs. This made everyone want a steak. So Earth ended up making dozens of dishes and learned the skill of speed cooking. As the days go by, Earth is making his own bow. Since the profession of archer is very rare, very few people literally do this. So after several attempts, he managed to create an improved frame. After several hours, Earth went to the market to buy better armor. He selected one and was absolutely happy. At that moment, he realized that her level stats had gone up, but then she remembered that she had to go cook. So before going to his house, he put several of his products in a vending machine. Next, Earth went hunting and managed to kill several wolves at a range greater than the rabbit. And after defeating many creatures, he managed to collect a lot of material for his potions and cooking. This made Earth happy, who believes that today was a very good day. Later, he returned to his vending machines and realized that all his products had been sold. Some customers even left notes praising the quality of his product. Earth immediately noticed a crowd and realized that everyone was looking for potions. Earth doesn't understand what happened, so he called Zwei and let her know that the NPCs are running out of potions. All the adventurers saw Earth, and, upon learning that he creates potions, they began to ask him for them. Earth had no choice but to tell them that he could sell many, but they would have to limit themselves to 5 per person, which delighted everyone. Earth's new friends arrived to tell him that they've come to help him. So they started selling the potions, and Earth just happened to run out of one of the herbs needed to make a batch, since Earth explains that nobody studied medicine because they considered it useless. Seeing that there are no more herbs, Earth tells him that he will continue making them the next day. But Ward arrived at that moment, accompanied by his group, and demanded that Earth give him all the potions he had. Earth refuses this, as it shows him that there is an angry mob that would be willing to defend him. Furthermore, he tells him to be careful, because if the NPCs run out of potions completely, making enemies of the people could pose a real problem. This greatly annoyed Ward, who sent Earth a duel request. Zwei tries to persuade Earth not to accept, but he accepts. Both enter a kind of combat dimension, and Earth believes that he has the advantage, since Ward believes that he won the fight without having fought. This caused the fight to begin, and Earth dodged his attack and, with a couple of moves, easily finished off Ward, which led to Ward's companions taking him away, and everyone was amazed by Earth. Finally, she made it clear to them that more potions would be available for sale tomorrow. At that moment, Earth disconnected from the game and thought that from now on, everyone would have a lot of respect for him. Several days before, Earth starts a session and explains that the medical profession is now much busier, as they now know that NPCs could run out of items. Earth immediately enters the game and heads towards Zwei's group. And Earth thanked him, since his friend invited him to his clan. He also introduces her to several of his companions, and we meet Nora, who is a specialist with short swords. On the other hand, we know Reiji, who is the tank of the group. And finally, we also have Kazamin, who possesses a sword which he calls a bastard sword. Earth tries to introduce himself at that moment, but the boys already know him, since clearly after beating Ward, Earth gained a lot of reputation. Zwei explains the position of each of them, and Earth thinks that he is a little unbalanced. But the boys trust him, since they plan to go hunting a wild bear. Earth gets nervous, since he knows they are very powerful, but the group lets him know that they trust him. Shortly afterwards, the group ventured into the forest, and Earth, using his vision and tracking abilities, managed to find one of the bears. So Earth was hit by an arrow, and seeing that the monster was completely furious, it headed towards Earth. But Reiji appeared and used her provocation ability on it, which caused the bear to divert its attention towards the tank. While Reiji tanked the monster, Millie took care of healing. The boys tried to stab it with their daggers and swords, and it didn't work because of its thick skin. Millie even tried to cast a fire spell, but it had no effect on the bear. Everyone got nervous, as they were running out of magic. So Earth thought that with his 38 years of experience, he would look for ways to finish off this monster. So he shot an arrow into its head, thinking that it would finish it off. But that didn't work. He had no choice but to pull out his secret weapon, so he used his wind magic, and after propelling himself forward, he ended up driving the arrow even deeper into the bear's head, and then was finished off by Millie's magic. Everyone was happy, and Earth mentions that as a reward, he will end up cooking for everyone. And after a while, the boys fell in love with the meat skewers that Earth prepared for them. Nora asks him if he bought a recipe to cook so deliciously, but Earth lets her know that recipes can't actually be traded, as it's forbidden in the video game. So he explains that in many cases, it could be too expensive to sell the recipes, not to mention that even if 2 characters have the same recipe, the food will turn out different despite using the same ingredients. This made the boys understand that if they took Earth's opinion into account, he told them that he was glad they had joined his group, since he could clearly cook for them at a very low price. The group was so excited that the rest of the members ended up sending their friend requests to Earth. As the days passed, Earth ended up dying in the video game, since he had just ventured into a forest much more dangerous than the previous one. Upon seeing a giant wasp, he tried to attack, but unintentionally ended up hitting a rock ant. This caused many more to be called, and Earth tried to kick one of them, but instead ended up paralyzed, and that's when the rest of the ants completely attacked him. Earth was then transported back to the city, and at that moment all players received a notification, as there was an update called the Fairy Dance. This game brings many items, skills, and many other things that could help players. Not to mention that there will be fairies everywhere helping players while they enjoy the video game. Earth at that moment knows that he must get serious without dying again, since every time the players die, they are penalized. So, in order to remove his current penalty, Earth developed the profession of blacksmith. So throughout the day, Earth dedicated himself to making an arrow that could pierce the shell of the rock ants. With his new acquisition, thinks that he should also buy something that will help him cause more damage with his kicks. So after thinking about it for a long time, he managed to create a kind of sharp soul, since right underneath it has spikes, and on both sides it also has blades that help him in combat. The blacksmith Black happened to be there, and was astonished, as were the other adventurers, that they were witnessing all of this. Earth was also very happy, as he had not previously thought about creating something of this magnitude. After a while, Earth arrived with a merchant named Mune, who gave him a special rope, since Earth had just headed to the workshop to make a better, more specialized, and much more powerful bow. Earth at that moment began to think about which style of bow would work much better than in combat. So he put several experience points into his shooting skills and thought that the best thing would be to create a homemade bow. While he was working, Blacks arrived and was astonished to see that he was once again manufacturing a weapon. And shortly after, Earth finished his weapon, and his bow is a little different from the normal ones, since he called it the X-shaped house bow. Earth was completely happy, since now this one is much more powerful than the previous one. The next day, Earth, seeking revenge on the rock ants, headed back to the forest. After finding one, he tested his new bow, and he managed to easily take one down. This allowed Earth to spend the rest of the afternoon hunting others, since upon finishing he obtained a full sack of shells, which he would take to make armor. After a couple of days, the day of the fairy update finally arrived. Earth realized that a packed crystal appeared in front of him. He tried to make a pact with the crystal in order to obtain his fairy. However, it ended up breaking, which left Earth completely disappointed. Earth went to join his friends and was amazed to see that they all possessed fairies in different forms of animals and beasts. The boys gave him some words of encouragement, mentioning that there will be a second part in the update. So since he hasn't disappeared, Earth's crystal tells him that he might have a second chance. Despite this, Zwei tells him that there is something strange about all of this, since for some reason they don't know, all of their fairies get along too well with Earth, as if Earth were a beloved being to the fairies. This led the group to jokingly tell him that he was quite the fairy seducer, which left Earth completely baffled. After a few hours, Earth is resting when we see a fairy arrive with him. He realizes that all the fairies like him, and at that moment decides to check his stats and notices that his skills have leveled up, so he decides to learn new skills at that moment, so he heads to a dungeon to test all his skills. And after entering, his detection skills tell him which parts have different traps. After walking a little, a monster appeared in front of him and he decided to attack it, but he realized that at first his attacks did not work. Just then, the spider attacked him, but thanks to his new ability to leap high, he managed to dodge the attack, and after catching the creatures with a whip, he kicked it, causing the monster to fall before him. A kind of fairy in the form of purple light began to guide him in another direction. Earth decided to follow them until he arrived at a place where there was a kind of dungeon chest. Without thinking twice, Earth opens the chest and finds a ring inside. Earth was very happy and thought it was thanks to the fairies who guided him to the place, and at that moment he received a message about the fairy dance update, as they announced that they were ready to begin the second part of the update event. The next day, Earth was in the city when the system reported on the second phase of the event. This indicates that people's abilities can evolve if they fight against other people, and they specifically mention that they will choose the best people in the entire fight for a special tournament mode. They also mention that with the new update, people will be able to have special titles for each fairy owner. Finally, the system makes it clear that people who were unable to make a pact with a fairy will be able to repair their crystals by fighting against other players. It also adds that the crystals that are repaired will have a fully guaranteed pact with a fairy. It also mentions that fairies now possess consciousness and will act in different ways. After saying these words, everyone was excited, and Earth wondered if everything would turn out all right, since many people are not good at fighting against others. After a while, Earth arrives with Blacks, who informs him that the artisans will not fight. And in this case, if someone challenges them, the entire artisan guild will come to their defense since everything has already been discussed among them. They both change the subject, and Blacks asks if he has gone to the newly discovered city of Nexia. Earth refuses, but finds it too interesting, and Black informs him that all the adventurers who want to fight are heading towards the place, and those who prefer a quieter environment prefer to watch adult movies at home. Earth thinks that these kinds of divisions are what he loves most about a video game, so he asks Black if he prefers to go fight, but the guy just replies that he prefers to stay in the blacksmith shop. After several days, Earth was very excited, since he had not been able to connect for at least a week. However, everyone kept watching it because of the title updates. Earth decides to examine his stats and realizes that he now holds the title of Fairy Seducer. This left Earth completely disappointed, since now everyone will think he's the Diddy of fairies. Earth thinks he must fight to obtain another title, so he asks the people around him if anyone wants to fight, and a girl named Rona offers to fight him. Earth was very excited when the girl mentioned that she belongs to the Blue Color Clan. Rona tells him that because she practices martial arts, Earth fights with his kicks, and she had wanted to meet him for a long time. At that moment, Earth begins to prepare, but the girl's golden parrot flew towards Earth's shoulders. Furthermore, she refused to fight him, which made people astonished to see that he is a seducer of ages in action. Earth recounts that he tried for a long time to convince the people to fight, but the fairies ultimately refused. Several hours later, Rona calls Earth to ask for some food for her pet, since her bird doesn't want to eat. And Earth understands, since there was a huge line waiting for food for his fairies. Earth explains to the girl over the phone that a few hours earlier the man had asked him for help with his fairy, as she didn't want to eat, so he trusted Earth's cooking skills to prepare something for his fairy. So she just made a couple of fritters that she thought the creature would like, and now word has spread all over the server. Earth doesn't seem happy with people, since at 38 years old in real life, he just wanted to play to be calm. A couple of hours later, Earth arrived with Rona, so that he can deliver her food, since he apologizes for having spent all day selling food for fairies. The girl understands and invites him to see the new city of Nexia, so he accepts, and he arrives immediately by teleporting. At that moment, they notice a duel taking place between two adventurers, so they approach to observe. One of the subjects launches an attack by means of his fairy, and right afterwards, both adventurers cross swords. One of them tried to order his wolf to attack his rival, but it ended up refusing, so by not obeying his order, the rival ended up defeating them with a lightning attack, and thus stabbing his sword in the chest. Rona understands what happened, since fairies don't usually disobey their master, but Earth lets her know that she is a fairy slaver, and that term is used for people who literally mistreat their fairies. We just see that the wolf master tried to hit his fairy, and Earth remembers that he had previously seen something similar, as a subject mistreated his fairy, and the game penalized him by making him fight against his own fairy. And if the person ends up losing against it, they also lose the opportunity to keep their packed crystal. At that moment, the man, who was about to hurt his wolf, realized that if he hit it, something similar would happen to him, so he simply left. They continued a long conversation, and the very tired protagonist said goodbye to the girl, as he was going to disconnect from the game at that moment. After disconnecting, Earth thinks that there are good people like Rona, who cares a lot about her fairies. So he hasn't completely lost faith in humanity yet. The next day, the subject who had fought with the wolf arrived to talk to him. The boy told him that he had seen the video where his master hurt his fairy, so he didn't want to end up like that with his wolf, and asked for advice on how to make peace with his fairy, explaining that because he didn't know how to take care of his fairy, he watched several videos, and on many occasions, they treated the creatures like circus animals. After the update in which they became aware, he hit her a couple of times and sincerely regrets it. Earth understands all this, so he asks her to treat the creature only as if it were his friend, since they need to rest and eat together if possible. Kind-hearted Earth prepared some food for him, and the man tried to give the wolf his hand. The wolf looked at the food for a few seconds and ended up accepting it, which made the adventurer happy. The boy thanked him and said goodbye at that moment. Just then, an old man arrived and asked Earth to talk in a much more private place. They immediately moved to a cabin where Earth noticed that the subject was very well equipped, so he thought that he must be one of the best players. Silver then asks him if he knows a guy named Glad, but seeing that he doesn't know the guy, he tells him to be very careful, since Glad is after people who hold the title of Fairy Seducer. Furthermore, Silver explains that Glad was a former member of his group and was a highly talented tank. However, the subject behaved badly, and for this reason they decided to remove him from the group. Silver also adds that the subject was very proud, and since the fairy event began, he was the only one who did not make a pact with any of them. Earth just thinks the boy is just like him, and Silver went on to explain that he started bothering everyone for being unique in not possessing a fairy, and he had no choice but to expel the boy. At that moment, a Valkyrie of light appeared beside Silver, for she is his fairy. Silver also adds that after the second chance, Glad managed to make a pact with a dark fox and has been chasing after players ever since, fighting non-stop. Finally, he tells him to be careful and adds that he will personally take care of things at the tournament, as he knows he will want to show his full strength there. After saying these words, Silver left with his fairy. The next day, Earth faces a bear and uses his new clone ability, which hits the monster with several arrows. So after throwing a kick, he managed to finish off the creature. Earth thinks he still needs to get used to fighting alone, so he decides to level up his skill, which makes him very happy. Shortly afterwards, Earth headed to one of the caves in Nexia to obtain minerals for his new weapon. However, at that moment, he hit an explosive material and miraculously escaped, not exploding, since some subjects mentioned to him that if that thing exploded, it would possibly destroy part of the entire city. Hours later, Earth arrived with Blacks and mentioned that he would make new weapons, so for several hours he created a spiral-shaped arrowhead, as well as a kind of metal whip, which he showed Blacks the next day. The man congratulated him because it couldn't have been easy to do, and after a long conversation, Earth ended up saying goodbye to the man. He immediately arrived at the alchemy shop and he took out the explosive material he had obtained, since he knows that if it explodes in the place, it will not affect anyone, since the place is adapted to this type of materials. So after several hours of experimenting, he created 3 potions, which he then headed away from the city to experiment with. And after throwing the first potion and seeing that nothing happened, he threw the second one, but this one ended up creating an explosion. Earth thinks that it took away at least 80% of his health, so he thinks that he will only use it in case of emergency against very powerful creatures. Finally, he tries the last potion, and it creates a simple explosion, which delights Earth, as it is exactly what he is looking for. The next day, there were several bears in front of Earth, and he improved the potion a little and threw it. At that moment, a smokescreen was created, allowing Earth to easily eliminate the bears. This allowed Earth to reach level 50 and realize that he can now improve his wind bow weapon, since by using magic, he can create an elemental weapon that allows him to add much more magical power to a weapon. Earth ends up accepting, since he knows it will give him a great benefit. He went to another place and activated his new ability called Gatling Arrow, so his speed when shooting increased, and he also realized that he now possesses another ability to move through the air, which makes him very happy, since he knows that things will be a little easier for him. After a long while, Earth arrived at Mune, as he gave her some materials to create a resistant cloak. At that moment, they were interrupted when the developers informed them about the latest tournament news, as they will report the top players with the most PvP points. Earth's friends arrived and mentioned that their clan didn't even bother to participate, but Earth observed that both Glad and Silver qualified, and their win rate was extremely high. So he's eager to see the fight between them. After several days of waiting, the day of the tournament finally arrived, and Earth, like his friends, came to see the fights. Earth used his vision and was pleased to learn that he is not the only one who holds the title of Fairy Seducer. The tournament started immediately, and after several fights, the finalists were none other than Glad and Silver. So Glad tells Silver that it would be best to surrender because he will beat him up. The fight then begins, and we see them fighting, and they seem to be 2 very top players. Just then, Silver launched an attack and fell into Glad's trap, as he defeated him with a double cut while in the air. Earth thinks that Glad came with every intention of winning, since he clearly wanted to get revenge on Silver. Right at that moment, they notice that Glad's fairy has evolved into a beautiful girl. She mentions that she refuses to continue being part of it, since the event seeks to choose the leader of all fairies. And because his oracle told him that his leader will be someone strong with innate abilities, it must be someone else. The girl, who is called the Fairy Queen, but we will call her Juicy, she tells him that fairies are not fighters and have only adapted to the capabilities of humans. Glad thinks this is absurd, since he believes the fairies only use them. Furthermore, the girl lets him know that their pact is over, since he always told her that he wanted to get revenge on Silver. This made Glad realize that all this time she hadn't considered him a real partner, but Juicy tells her that, like her, Glad had always seen her as a fighting tool and nothing more. So, knowing all this, she used Glad to become the Fairy Queen. Earth and Millie think that the Fairy Queen acts as if she were a real person, since after all she is part of the video game. Even Earth wonders if it's some kind of artificial intelligence created by the developers. Finally, Juicy tells the boy that as a reward he will receive $300,000 and will also ensure that he can make a pact with another as strong as her before she evolved into a queen. Glad gets angry with the girl and tells her that he will not allow this to happen. And Juicy tells him that he will then wager both the prize and the pact with the second fairy, because if he loses, he doesn't plan to give him anything. And if he manages to win, then she will continue to be his personal fairy. Glad at that moment accepts without thinking, since he thinks he could beat her. This caused them to enter the combat arena, and after a series of combos of different spells, he ended up seriously injured. Just when he has 1 HP left, the girl tells Silver that it was enough to hurt his pride. So Silver arrived to be able to offer them some words of reconciliation. And Juicy also tells everyone that there are still 3 more awards to be given out. And both Earth and 2 other boys who hold the title of Fairy Seducer were teleported to the center of the arena. The girl thanked him for not getting into a fight with anyone. Furthermore, she gave the other boys a gift, a fairy. She tells Earth that he will have a fight at that moment, which leaves Earth completely bewildered. Juicy lets him know that she understands she might have felt bad for not having made a pact with a fairy, so she promises him that if he beats her in a fight, he will get some of her power and a pretty good prize. Earth ends up accepting, and we see some men watching, seemingly the developers of the video game. Earth is thinking about materials he could use to beat Juicy, since he knows she's quite powerful with her magic. Earth knows that his only advantage is that he already saw her fight against Glad. So he thinks that the best thing to do is to fight against a couple of tricks so that she can't expect it. At that moment, both prepare themselves and the fight begins immediately. Earth managed to hit her with his arrow, even though the girl used her magic. This made Juicy nervous, who knew she had to do something or Earth would end up counteracting her magic. The girl lunges at Earth, but Earth, with several movements and using his different positions, managed to neutralize her, but she unexpectedly created a concrete wall that managed to surround her. Everyone got nervous, since they knew Earth couldn't attack her. But he disappeared, and thanks to his stealth ability, the girl, despite being inside, didn't manage to detect Earth at any time, so she lowered her guard and deactivated her stone barrier. But Earth tied her up with his whip and delivered a 5-piece chicken combo with different bow skills, which resulted in the girl being defeated by Earth. But he was disappointed, since he had forgotten that everyone was watching him, and the last thing he wanted to do was attract people's attention. At that moment, the queen reappeared and apologized for being so arrogant towards him. In addition, he asked for the ring he had found in the dungeon and its crystal, explaining that the ring belonged to the Fairy King. Just then, the girl casts a spell and ends up fusing the ring's crystal with her own ring, and tries to force Earth to put it on at that moment. She even used a power-up spell to be able to put it on, since Earth was refusing. And after doing so, Earth checks his stats and is surprised to hear that he possesses the power of 6 elemental fairies. Finally, Earth is left very sad, since despite being a good ring, he cannot unequip it at any time. And we just see that Juicy ended up saying goodbye to everyone in the combat area. Next, Earth explains that after his fight, many people ended up becoming archers, since they saw how useful it can be. This led him to become very famous, which meant he had to distance himself from everyone in order to lead a quiet life within the video game. However, his peace ended at that moment, as the queen emerged from Earth's ring. Earth ended up hitting her, since for a queen, she wasn't ruling, but the girl let him know that she was very bored, but preferred to go out with him somewhere. Later, Earth began to gain popularity as the queen's husband. Just as he was walking through the city, he remembered Juicy showing him that he now possessed the ability called Prince Nova. However, Juicy didn't explain how it worked, as he had to figure it out himself. So Earth went with a bear, and after catching it with his whip, he began to recite the ability of his ring. So, after saying many words, a powerful magic sphere was created in the sky that impacted the monster and left it completely petrified. This meant that the next time the Earth met with the Queen, he told her that he now understood that Prince Nova could cast a random effect in an arena. The girl agrees with him, and even mentions that the petrifying effect is too unusual. Likewise, Juicy is scolded when she tries to take one of Earth's dishes, as he tells her that it is for the customers, but Juicy mentions that she is tired of the food from the fairy kingdom. This is because they are very sweet foods throughout the kingdom. At that moment, a man arrived who had tried to get Earth's attention, as he began to offer him a place in Earth's guild, but Earth didn't seem to care much, because while the man was talking, they both packed their things and left, leaving him alone. After a long while at a trading post, several customers failed to pick up their orders. Earth ended up giving several to the Juicy, which made her return to the kingdom completely happy. The next day, Earth arrived at the artisan's workshop and ran into Blacks and other artisans interested in Earth, since they wanted to see Earth in action making his new weapon. Earth immediately began adding details and managed to improve his X-shaped bow. He also wanted to add some upgrades to his boots, knowing they could be extremely useful in combat. After several hours of work on them, he managed to improve his shoes with steel fangs. At that moment, all the artisans were amazed, and Earth thought that he would have preferred not to attract anyone's attention. Finally, he thinks that he only needs one small detail, and he went to Mune. She handed him his cloak while she stood there looking like a baddie but with a flat butt. Maybe it's just from this angle. Earth was very happy, as it is quite resilient and will help him in battles. Earth received a message from the Apollo Guild. After a long while, Earth arrived at the place where many members were, and the girl we know as Ayame. Earth asks her why she called him, and Ayame replies that she wants to apologize for the behavior of one of her members named Neither, since he had been literally harassing Earth. In addition, the girl mentions that after the fight, Earth became famous, and they created said clan where they only accept archers. So this was the reason why Neither wanted Earth to join them, as he thought the guild would grow much more with Earth. Earth tells her that he has no problem, since the boy's presence didn't affect him, but he tells Ayame that what the member of their group did was serious, since he was recruiting new members using Earth's name. This caused everyone to bow as a form of apology for everything Neither had done. Despite this, she offered her apologies without any problem. Ayame was informed that Neither had been punished by being demoted from deputy to ordinary member, not to mention that he had lost many of his benefits in the guild. So after a long conversation, the girl tells him that he is now the hope of all the archers in the game. Earth thinks he only wanted to play to be quiet and unintentionally gained a lot of popularity. We then see the game developers mention that they will have to keep a close eye on Earth, as he defeated a great rival and has been influencing other players. As days passed, Earth thought that the game developers had released an update and now there would be many more players. Furthermore, he mentions that they increased the production of virtual reality headsets, and now there is no shortage. Earth immediately enters the game and runs into his friends. They mention the update that took place, and the new effects of status effects, like Armbreaker, which disarms the opponent. At that moment, they were interrupted when the system told them about the new dungeon that the new update brought with it. This dungeon is known as the Challenge of the Dead. The system explains that the dungeon appears randomly and is a completely new experience unlike ordinary dungeons. Finally, it makes it clear that there will be many traps which could end their lives. Earth and his group get excited, as it could be a great adventure. Next, the system shows you a phase of the players in combat. Therefore, as Earth, they were shown fighting before thousands of players. This made Earth nervous, as it continues to make him much more popular. During the next few days, Earth defeated several monsters, as he needs to train if he wants to go to the new dungeon. In addition, he adapted a kind of arrow launcher to a hand shield so that he could shoot if he couldn't do it with his bow. After a while, Earth arrived with Blacks and showed him the details about a new bow he was about to manufacture, since he had brought the blueprints from the real world. Blacks was amazed, since that bow has a rating of 3 and could be highly sought after by any archer in that world. Finally, Earth tells him that he plans to create it, but for the moment there is nothing better than the real world. So for the rest of the night, he dedicated himself to making a very light metal shield, since this would work for him and he would have a lot of mobility while blocking attacks. In addition, we can see that he has a secret bow, which will help him shoot while blocking attacks. Earth decided to try it, and although it took him quite a while to adapt to it, it ended up being a complete success. After testing it against a tree, he realized that it has great impact power. As days passed, the day of the dungeon update finally arrived, so Earth headed to the place and realized that the dungeon is a kind of giant pyramid. Earth was pleased to see many merchants when suddenly he was interrupted by some very strange subjects, as they looked like the anime Power Rangers. Each one of them is presented with the name of the same color that they possess. Earth immediately thinks they are quite strange, and they ask him about the Black Ranger. But Red tells him that because he had a stomachache, he couldn't attend the dungeon with them. So, because they were short a member, they ended up inviting Earth to join their group. Despite Earth thinking it might be silly to go with them, he clearly ended up accepting. Upon entering, Red becomes a little desperate, and Earth immediately stops him, explaining that there are many traps in this place. He decides to guide them through the first room, and afterwards Red tells him that he will guide them from that moment on. Skeletons then appeared, but the Rangers easily defeated them, making Earth realize that they weren't so bad after all. They just reached the stairs to the second floor and realized that for a dungeon that only took an hour, they managed to complete the level in just 18 minutes, so they should be careful from now on. They arrived with other skeletons and tormented souls, and Pink managed to take down several of them, but because they are now much stronger, Earth had to interfere with one of his special arrows. After a long struggle, they managed to reach the stairs of the fourth level. Earth mentions that they've been at it for 40 minutes and will barely get past the fourth level. And because the best reward is within that level, they don't think they'll make it back if they turned around, so they'll do their best to reach the fifth level. They immediately descend, and Earth senses a very strange aura in the place. They hear some adventurers shouting, so they decide to enter a room where they are locked in due to a trap. It features two adventurers completely surrounded by many monsters. And after examining the area, Earth realized that there were no traps and they only had to eliminate the monsters. So in the blink of an eye, they finished them all off and the doors opened at that moment. Just like a reward chest, appeared one of the subjects, who had been saved by them. He argued with Earth, since the latter had detected a trap in the chest. But because the subject did not want to listen to Earth's recommendation regarding avoiding opening that chest, the boys left the room immediately and just heard as the chest ended the adventurers' lives. Earth informed him that the room was a double trap, as it first trapped them with many monsters and then killed them if they opened the chest. A flash appeared above them and they were teleported out of the dungeon as the dungeon hour had just expired. Red asked Earth why he was able to identify the trap in the chest, and the adventurer wasn't, since the subject also possessed the thief skill just like Earth, so he went directly and asked him if he was level 20 or higher. Earth, without giving him the exact information, confirms this, and thinks that even if he had been of a low level, he would have fallen into the trap in the same way. After a long conversation, Green mentions that he drew the map on the first floor and they believe he might come the next day. However, his companions scoff. Since it's a random dungeon and possibly another day, it will have very different rooms. And after saying goodbye, Earth's group headed back to the workshop, and right there, Earth thought about creating a tool that could help him in the dungeon. Blax, as expected, is surprised, since every creation Earth makes is totally innovative, but because he can't create a lockpick like the one he wants, Blax lends a hand and ends up making exactly what Earth wants, which leaves the boy totally fascinated. Just as Earth returned home, he got a tremendous fright when Juicy appeared in front of him. The boy asks her why she is dressed so elegantly, and the girl tells him that she is handing out pact crystals to new players. After a short conversation, Juicy begins to say goodbye to Earth, and she wants to give him a little kiss. But Earth ended up slapping her with his paper fan. He tells her that they are not married to do this kind of thing. So at that moment, they both said goodbye. The next day, while Earth was making some arrows, Juicy arrived completely disturbed, as she mentions that she managed to deliver all the crystals. But the men who appeared asked her many questions, leaving the girl very disturbed and tired from everything she had to answer them, since the subjects were all otakus who loved waifus in video games. For this reason, she asks Earth to sign the documents so she can marry him, because she wants him to pamper her and give her lots of affection. To calm Juicy down, he decided to cook her some mochi. She was so delighted that she ended up lying down in Earth's lap. After several days, Earth is in trouble, as a boss is about to kill him. So we immediately jump back several days before this happened. For several days, Earth tried to open trap chests with his new tool, but ended up failing. Until finally, he mentions that his thief skill reached level 50, so he unlocked a skill that allowed him to steal items from monsters while going completely unnoticed. Right at that moment, Red calls him over so he can finally introduce him to the Black Ranger. They immediately headed towards the dungeon, and both the Black Ranger and Earth seemed crazy with excitement as they tried to decipher a chest trap. Subsequently, Earth decided to go to the dungeon alone for the next few days, and it became easier and easier for him to open the chests, Not to mention that his new ability allowed him to go unnoticed among all the monsters, until the day came when he was finally able to reach the stairs of the penultimate floor. Because he only had 5 minutes left, he decided to descend as quickly as he could, and upon arriving he realized that there were many liches. Likewise, the rangers had advised him to be cautious, since if one of them sees him, it will attract other monsters. Earth immediately began to run, avoiding all possible monsters and obstacles until he reached the stairs on the top floor. However, the place was completely full of traps all around, so he used his wind magic to take a great leap and propel himself forward. He stepped on a trap, but he was much faster and managed to get in with 0.02 of a second remaining. Earth realized that the clock had stopped, and the dungeon hadn't taken him out, so he thought that perhaps going down the stairs and finding the final boss must be at the very bottom. As Earth descended, he heard the voice of a knight who introduced himself. We will call him Skelly. Skelly explained that he was an ancient knight of the Empire. The knight explains that he was sent to the place in order to seal the labyrinth. However, all his companions died, and just when he reached the final room, there was absolutely nothing there. He even ended up dying from lack of air and became a skeleton knight defending the dungeon. Finally, Earth asks him what he wants him to do with him, to which Skelly asks him to end his suffering since he is at the limit of suffering, and at that moment the stairs disappeared and Earth ended up falling to the deepest part. Right in front of him appeared Skelly's body, but because of how tired he was, the tormented soul caused another spirit to take over his body. Furthermore, Earth, tired of his talk, hit him with several arrows which Skelly blocked and counterattacked in the same way. Earth thinks he is too fast and too strong. Skelly attacks Earth, but he distracts it with a fire potion. Furthermore, he loaded his bow and tried to hit it, but the skeleton launched a long-range attack that snatched the bow from his hands. So he had no choice but to take out the crossbow he had placed on his hand shield and tried to attack the monster. But it dodged each of the attacks with a powerful ability that it threw against the wall. And it was right here, at the exact moment when Earth was stunned against the final boss of the dungeon. Earth became very nervous, and the boss informed him that he would send him to the god they all worshipped, so he tried to attack with him. In response, Earth dodged the attack and kicked him in the face. This angered the skeleton, but Earth, with a very skillful movement, managed to capture it with his whip. Earth took advantage of the boss being stunned for a few moments and began charging his special ability from the ring that Juicy had given him. So after reciting Prince Nova's spell and taking a little damage, Earth managed to fully activate it successfully. This caused a circle of invocation to be created over both of them. Earth prayed that the random effect had been either a stun or a petrification. However, he only managed to freeze his hand. Juicy herself appeared to help Earth. So after pointing his staff at the monster, he ended up freezing the monster completely. Earth realized that the ring was actually a fairy pact with her. So he took advantage of the fact that the skeleton was frozen and went to look for his bow. Without thinking twice, Earth unleashed a combo of arrow skills and also several explosive potions. This caused the skeleton to regain his original form of the ancient knight that Skelly used to be. Skelly then congratulated him for having beaten him and thought that he managed to destroy the skeleton's soul before his own disappeared. So it gave Earth time to say goodbye and thank him for freeing him from the nightmare that had lasted so many years. Skelly jokingly told him that for a moment he thought that perhaps Earth wouldn't be able to defeat him, to which Earth apologized, but added that he was happy because he could fulfill his request to finish him off. So he told Earth that he could keep his sword as a reward. Next, Earth obtained an ancient knight's sword, and Skelly let him know that he might be able to sell it for a good price. Finally, Skelly says a few last words and mentions that he believes there are gods in this world. All of Skelly's former companions appeared to take him to heaven. So after saying goodbye, they all began to ascend to heaven. The dungeon doors open, and an announcement informs all players that they have defeated one of the dungeon's secret bosses, so by obtaining the sword, the new weapon called the Night Sword has now been unlocked. The system adds that there is currently no better sword than that one in the world of video games. Earth was pleased to hear this, and because the system hinted that there were many other bosses, he thought there must be more secret weapons as well, so he planned to continue visiting new dungeons when they appeared. The next day, Earth was very sad, since both his shield and whip were damaged in the fight against the boss. So he threw away the fire remains and, very grateful, thought that they clearly worked for him in combat. Furthermore, he turned the molten iron into a new shield, a little weaker than the previous one, and he believes that his bow was also badly damaged after the fight and thinks it will cost him a fortune to repair them. But upon seeing the sword, he thinks that perhaps he can pay a lot of money or use it to fight. Later that night, there is a happy girl because her turn to go and look for Earth is possible. In the background, the game developers are talking about Juicy, mentioning that they have detected minor problems with the girl, such as her getting bored easily, which is something they need to resolve very soon. Back with Earth, he finds himself reunited with his group as they are about to go to the dungeon. They let him know they have a new member and apologize in advance because this girl can sometimes be rude. At that moment, they are interrupted when the girl arrives, and we know her as Elizabeth. At first, she seems a little arrogant, but he adds that after all, she is a good mage who will help them in combat. Zwei asked her to apologize to Earth for being so arrogant, but she, very incredulous, tells him that an archer like him couldn't be of much help to them, and Earth humbly tells her that he will soon see if she is useful to his group or not. They then go to the dungeon, and Earth deactivates several traps, which makes Elizabeth realize that Earth is not as bad as she thinks. They also reach the 5th floor, and Earth's group discussed how they should be very careful, as many minor liches might appear at that time. Elizabeth can't believe they're so dangerous, since she's quite a brat. Millie tells them they have no problems, since she can help after with paralyzing effects, and Elizabeth can cure petrification, but at that moment Earth senses the presence of monsters approaching. So he warns everyone for a few moments, and they get nervous, but they know that they must act seriously if they don't want to die trying. Elizabeth is a complete coward, as she begins to tremble with fear, but they make her see reason, since she is partly responsible for buffing her crew. The lesser liches appeared, and the group began to attack relentlessly. Reiji decided to use provocation to get the creature's attention, and he did manage to kill one of them, but the other 3 managed to petrify part of Reiji's arm. Everyone asked Elizabeth to cure the petrification of the tank, but the terrified Elizabeth couldn't say a single word. This left Earth with no option but to ask everyone to take cover, as they were about to launch explosives. So after doing so, Earth gave Elizabeth confidence, and she immediately healed Reiji. After recovering, everyone ended up finishing off all the creatures. Elizabeth apologized to Earth for having treated him so badly at the beginning, since thanks to him she lost her fear and told them that during the rest of the dungeon she was going to help them without being afraid. After a few hours, the group left the dungeon very happy because they had obtained a great loot. Just as Earth said goodbye to everyone, a girl was spying on Earth. The next day, while Earth was finishing some things, the girl who was spying on him arrived, her name Ryu. Earth immediately realized that it wasn't a player, because it had dragon ears and a different appearance. To help Earth understand who she was, the girl told him that she was very similar to Fairy's younger sister. Earth realized that, like the other girl, this one attracted trouble. But just as Earth asked her why she had come, he was completely outraged by her answer, as she told him that she had personally come to test Earth's delicious lips, which made him slap her for being as perverted as her sister. Ryu tells him that she was joking and that she came to try his food, since her sister had mentioned that he is a great cook. Earth offers her some food, but tells her that she will have to wait because he has several jobs to do. So Ryu happily tells him that he will accompany him so that he can get to know the city. Later they arrived with Mune, and she told him that his cape had suffered considerable damage, so in short, she told Earth that she could no longer repair it. So he gives her some materials, and Mune tells him that she can make a set of leather reinforced with silver. Earth accepts this, and tells her that they will come in a few days when it is finished. Ryu then interrupts and lets Earth know that it's time to eat. So Earth went and cooked her a boiled rabbit steak with herbs, and after tasting it, she was totally fascinated by the tender taste of the meat. This caused her to eat non-stop, and Earth ended up cooking her at least 3 dishes. Shortly afterwards, she was completely satisfied, and Earth asked her if she was a fairy like Juicy, but the girl refused to give him any information, as she was not allowed to do so. At that moment, they were interrupted when an important announcement came on for all players. Shortly after, Earth arrived with Blacks, and they both talked about the important announcement of the game, as they mentioned that each player's techniques could evolve if they leveled them up. However, there was a catch. Players must specialize in only one style of play, so in the case of the wizards, they should have only learned magical attacks, just like Chinese sword fighting techniques. Blacks informed him that many players would be upset by the announcement, as they would have a month to clearly adjust their skills, and this could be a future problem for Earth. This was partly because he had maxed out several of his combat skills, among other things. because if he specializes in combat, he won't be able to cook delicious meals for his friends again, and clearly his friends won't be able to enjoy his banquets. So Earth lets him know that he will think about it later and will continue as normal until then. Several days later, Earth arrived with Mion and was delighted to see his new armor set. Since the materials that Earth had given her were of very high quality, Earth even mentions that his stats and defenses have now increased considerably. Earth tells her that she can keep his old equipment, since now he will have to take care of the new one. Earth also explains that in the world of video games, people often become attached to their weapons and equipment. For this reason, he finds it difficult to abandon it in order to use a new one. After a while, as Earth was walking, Juicy arrived accompanied by several fairies. The girl created a barrier so that no one could hear them. With a sad face, she let Earth know that it will not be possible for any fairy to make a pact for him. Earth thinks he didn't know they hated him so much, but Juicy tells him that actually all the fairies adore him. Furthermore, she tells him that she had thought of introducing him to one of the 6 fairies behind her, as they are the most powerful that exist. However, she lets him know that as soon as the rest of the fairies in the kingdom found out, they all came to visit her to ask her to make a pact with Earth. He adds that if a fairy were to form a pact with Earth, the fairy kingdom would possibly descend into complete chaos. So she apologizes for not allowing him to have a partner by his side. Earth appears very calm and replies to the girl that he is very used to being alone, so it won't be a problem. The girl is happy to hear this. So as a reward for not having a fairy by her side, she tells him that she will give him some of her power. So after taking him by the hand, she adds that she will give him the ability to use 2 very powerful techniques. The first is the 7 shooting stars, which are activated when Earth hits 7 attacks on the same target, causing a lot of damage to the monster that is attacking at that moment. And secondly, she tells him that the second ability is the Bow of Sacrifice, since this ability can be used to change Earth, who will lose 90% of his HP. Furthermore, the ability destroys his bow in exchange for firing a very, very powerful arrow. Juicy warns him that it is a very dangerous technique, so she asks him to avoid using it. Earth thinks that despite it being a very good skill, he doesn't want to be losing his bows, so he will use the weapons that he knows he will lose if that clearly happens. Finally, the girl tells him that everything should stay between them, and Earth understands this. Juicy also adds that the next update will open the fairy kingdom to all adventurers, so Earth is very excited to go, and when they open it, and before the fairies leave, he ends up giving them a banquet so they can take it to the other kingdom. The next day, Earth and his group are talking about an advertisement for the game, since it is partnered with another company and created several virtual reality games. But Earth says he prefers to stay in this one, since the update in which the fairies will open their public kingdom will happen very soon. Right at that moment, Zwei tries to take one of Earth's meats, so he gets slapped with the fan. He gives the object back to Nora and asks her to hit him with every time he does something stupid. He takes the opportunity to ask him a 3rd time if he wants to join their clan, since although Earth had not been in their clan, he shares in their adventure group, but because he prefers tranquility, he ends up refusing. Ryu arrived, wanting to eat his meat. Earth took Nora's fan away and slapped her. She became sad, because Earth's meat smells absolutely delicious. Just then the boys ask him who he is, but Ryu, a total pervert, tells them that perhaps containing the queen wasn't enough for him. This caused him to end up hitting her for imagining such ugly things. Earth even says that if he could give it to the queen, he wouldn't think twice, since she eats so much that she's bankrupting him. Next, Earth starts chatting with Ryu, and the girls gather around and think that they seem to be getting very close. Finally, Zwei tells Earth that he will publish everything about the gossip between them, but Earth threatens to never cook for him again. Also, the girls tease Earth by saying that he used to be a fairy seducer, and now he seduces dragons. Later, several days passed, and finally the Fairy Kingdom update became available. We just saw that many people were walking to the Fairy Kingdom, and I was delighted to do the same. However, when he arrived at the gates of the kingdom, a man asked him to show him his ring. Upon seeing him, the man realized it was Earth, so he told him that the queen had given him orders to take him immediately. This made Earth completely nervous, as he was attracting people's attention. A giant bird arrived, and the man informed him that only certain fairies could ride her, but ordered the bird to take Earth to where she was to avoid attracting attention, clearly unaware that everything was attracting people's attention. Earth immediately climbed onto the bird and was happy to see how soft it was, and then immediately began the journey to the queen's castle. After several minutes of flying, he arrived at the castle and was greeted by Juicy and her most powerful fairies. The girl then tells him that they've created a small parade in which he'll be the star of the event, which makes Earth very happy. And that night, all the fairies were happy to meet Earth for the first time. While parading on the bird, Earth thinks that he doesn't like to attract attention, but he knows that he can't refuse. Earth thinks that despite being a video game, he will always keep the memories within this fantasy. The next day, we see Earth kneeling in front of the queen's throne. Earth thanked her for the welcome, and the girl informed him that she had to introduce him to all the fairies because they thought they wanted Earth all to themselves. The girl then approached him and sarcastically mentioned that perhaps he should belong to her. This prompted another woman to ask her to behave, as she was acting in a somewhat perverted way. He also asked Earth to stay with them in the kingdom, and in return he would not bother them or have guards watching over him. This prompted Earth to thank him and mention that he would return to being an ordinary adventurer starting tomorrow. After a while, Earth was walking through the castle corridors when Fairy asked him to talk, since she directly told him that they could sleep together in the bed. Earth got nervous and, after thinking for a few seconds, acted like a total coward and ran out of the castle. Later, Earth explains that, after leaving the castle, the bird arrived at the southern village of the kingdom. In that place, Earth was carrying out missions for the local tavern. Earth explained to the girl that it was a little easy for him, and she replied that she hoped it would last for several days. In addition, Earth asked her if he could use the kitchen of the place, to which she readily agreed. During the following days, Earth prepared several dishes, which began to attract the attention of all the adventurers. So he asked them if they were willing to pay for his food, to which they all replied without hesitation. So, during the next few days, Earth ended up cooking for all the adventurers in the place. Furthermore, she delighted everyone with the flavor of her cooking. Earth recounts that he spent the following days hunting. He used the meat of his prey to cook in the tavern and sell food, not to mention that he enjoyed the company of all the adventurers in the area. And they didn't wait until the fairy kingdom was finished doing all this. Until one day, a woman arrived and asked him to hide Earth, as the daughter of the fort was heading towards the place to look for him. We just see that a beastly woman arrives and very haughtily mentions that she is looking for Earth to give him a chance to cook for her. But the woman at the tavern told him that he had already left some time ago. The tavern woman informed her that he had gone north, and the girl, after thinking for a few seconds, ordered her guards to capture Earth if they found him, and warned the tavern woman that she hoped she wasn't lying or else she would end up paying dearly for it. After saying these words, he left the place. Everyone agrees that the beast woman is quite annoying and they are glad that she is gone. They also apologize to Earth, as the queen had ordered them not to bother him about any matter. The woman also mentions that the girl basically does whatever she wants because her father is the port chief and she is never punished despite complaints from citizens and adventurers. And Earth understands that all this is the girl's father's fault. So he tells her that to avoid problems, it's best to leave the place. The woman, a little sad, mentions that she would have liked him to stay a little longer, but she understands that the orders not to disturb Earth are very clear, so she thanked him at that moment for having given her a place to stay for several days. Later, Earth decided to escape at night, and the guards let him know that they are gathering evidence to take the woman to the queen, so they expect him to return when everything calms down. After leaving the place, a bear named Zaytan tells him that he will take him to the next city in the south. In the background, the Sadas are talking to Juicy. They inform him that the daughter of the fort's chief was bothering a human. Juicy thinks she cannot allow this, as they are forming bonds with humans. But upon hearing that it was Earth, she gave a rather imposing look. Earth and Zaytan arrived at the southern city of the fairy kingdom, and Earth was amazed to see that everyone was playing the instruments. Zaytan let him know that in the fairy kingdom there are many artisans and art is greatly encouraged. In addition, Set said that different types of art are practiced in each part of the city. Afterwards, they both went to an inn, as Earth was very tired, and after completing the necessary paperwork, Earth ended up lying down on the bed and they logged off. The next day, Earth woke up in his bed and felt something on top of him. So when he lifted the sheet, he realized that it was Juicy, who had a perverted face at that moment. Juicy began to beg Earth to let him stay with him in bed. At that moment, the inn owner arrived and found them in a very compromising position. Furthermore, to make matters worse, Zaytan arrived at the scene but they were shocked to see that it was the queen herself who was on top of him. The situation couldn't get any worse until Ryu arrived and became completely furious with jealousy when she saw them so close together, as she imagined that they had done the deed and everything. But Juicy tells him that she only came to apologize for the misunderstanding they had with the fort's chief's daughter, since she mentioned that she punished them as well as her 80 private guards. Earth asks her how she did it, to which Fayu replies that she left everyone dying and then healed them again. This disturbed the Earth, as the girl is a complete lunatic. Earth let her know that he would not hold a grudge against the kingdom, and Fayu was very happy about this. But her sister hit her when she saw that she was behaving too flirtatiously with him, since she was jealous and did not want Fayu to take advantage of his innocence. Just then, both girls said goodbye to Earth, and the old man of the place told him that a long time ago the fairies and dragons entered into a conflict, so if they find out about Ryu, there will probably be problems. The old man leaves, and Zayton mentions that he would like to have a girl as crazy as Fayu. At that moment, a woman enters. Her daughter has disappeared, and she needs help to find her. At that moment, they sit down to chat, and Zayton realizes that the woman has a noble surname. She also explains that her daughter normally goes for a walk every day, but has not returned today. So he gives them a photo of the girl, and they both mention that they will take care of finding her. They then go to various places to ask about the girl, and some guards mention that the girl went towards the forest. As they venture a little deeper, Earth detects the presence of several monsters, and suddenly some goblins appear. But as expected, they end up defeating them very easily. Earth then used his tracking magic and managed to identify many monsters as well as some human markings, so they set off without hesitation towards the location. Upon arriving at the location, Earth used his vision ability and realized that the girl was being surrounded by many goblins. Earth asked him to spray a potion and protect the girl while he attacked from afar, so when he reached her and gave her the potion, they both started fighting together at that moment, and after a while fighting, Earth arrived with them when they had finished everyone off. The girl thanked him, and they both mentioned that her mother had paid him to come and pick her up. Earth asked him why he didn't become a wolf, since his family has a lineage with the Fenris. The girl explains that she was walking when she suddenly smelled something sweet and was suddenly surrounded by monsters. Earth then gave her an antidote, and after she took it, he asked her to try transforming again. The girl was able to do so successfully, and he realized that she had been poisoned by someone. So he asked her to transform back into a human, and Zayton took her away immediately, since Earth had told him that he wanted to get some fresh air alone. At that moment, Earth threw a fire potion at the bushes, as he had previously detected the presence of two humans. Just then, a man came out of the place, and Earth told him that only bandits do this kind of thing, and Earth senses something strange about him, since he seems to be a human controlling the character, but he knows that he is not a real player. Earth knows he must eliminate him, as he was possibly created by the developers and could lead both races to war. At that moment, the subject attacks Earth with a single move and manages to finish him off. He thinks he will do everything in his power, as he does not intend to allow the relationship between dragons and Haydad to cause another war. Next, Earth walked towards the forest and ran into Zatan and the girl waiting for them. Earth let him know that he had gotten rid of the rat that was in the vicinity. This prompted him, as a good friend, to tell him that he would then take care of carrying him on his back. After a while, the girl and her mother reunited. They seemed happy, since their mother had thought the worst of them. Just then, the girl's mother told him that she would reward each of them with $100,000. But Earth, being a good man who gives an assist, tells her that he prefers that she allow her daughter to go out with Zayton. This shocked Zayton. Unlike the girl, who was delighted by his proposal and believes that Zayton is very brave, since there are many stories that portray him as a true hero. So he accepted the date with Zayton, and Zayton got too nervous, so Earth asked him to leave so they could be alone together. Earth immediately called Juicy, who thought she was going to confess her feelings. Shortly afterwards, he told her what happened with the human, and mentioned that she should avoid a possible war in case the developers send another human. Just then, Earth felt tired and told the girl that he was going to rest, but this pervert jumped onto the bed first and asked him to sleep together. Earth, very focused, told them to leave. Fairy became like a crying child, since she has wanted to sleep with Earth for many weeks. The girl refuses to leave, so Earth tells her that maybe someday they can sleep together. Juicy happily accepted these words and left immediately. The next day, Earth says goodbye to the old man and thanks him for the lodging. At that moment, the girl appeared, and they both mentioned that they would go live together. This left Earth very excited, who believes that his efforts paid off. Because Earth tells him that he will be going to another city, Zayton laments not being able to carry him on his back, but Earth humbly tells him that it's okay, since he thanked him for bringing him to this city in the first place. After saying goodbye, the old man lets him know that the next place he wants to go is too far away. The old man mentions that not even the royal family pays attention to him, but they were surprised when he appeared in front of them. Next, the big bird arrived at the outskirts of the city where Earth lives, and in order not to attract attention, asked him to get off first and ended up preparing a meal for him as a thank you. The bird also gave him one of his feathers, and this feather empowers the people who carry it, as it reduces the fatigue of adventurers on a large scale. Then, they both said goodbye, and Earth went to join Blacks. Right there, Earth created an improved bow with light iron and headed elsewhere to test it. But Earth received a message in which a girl appeared thanking him for the souls he had freed from the event dungeon, as she introduces herself as the very guardian of the labyrinths. So she proposes that he participate in an event where people have defeated dungeon bosses and can win unique items and all, but despite her words, Earth simply rejected the girl's proposal as he doesn't want to gain more fame than he already has. Just then, Earth heard a noise in the distance, and after heading to the place, he realized that there were several subjects on the ground and a baby dragon crying. Earth immediately picks up the baby dragon and thinks that he should take it to the city, but seeing that it will clearly attract attention, he prefers to avoid it at that moment. Furthermore, he gave him some meat so that he could be calm. Shortly afterwards, Earth starts cooking and thinks that all baby creatures are cute. Also, after sitting down to eat, he realized that the dragon was hungrier, so it ended up falling asleep after eating all of Earth's food. So he decides to call Juicy, and Juicy panics when she sees the dragon. The girl also explains that there are different types of dragons, but both are extremely powerful. At that moment, the girl thinks they must do something, because if her parents arrive in the city, they could be a big problem. At that precise moment, one of the fairies arrives and informs them that a pair of dragons are approaching them at great speed. Zafana observes the dragon and goes into shock and mentions that they shouldn't have kidnapped a baby dragon, but Juicy nervously tells them that she wasn't responsible and it was possibly some bandits. And then Earth headed towards an open field where the dragons arrived. Earth began to explain what had happened, and at first they didn't believe him. But just then, Earth returned the baby, and the dragon let him know that after seeing his baby's memories, they realized he was telling the truth. So they apologized for implying that he was a kidnapper and even thanked him for giving them food. Finally, Earth asks them to please forget everything that happened and not to blame the fairy kingdom for it. The dragons accepted his request and immediately sped off. Fari then thanked him for taking her kingdom into account and avoiding possible conflicts, and even invited Earth to the castle so she could thank him properly. But Earth replied that he prefers to be quiet doing missions in some small town. At that moment, the big bird arrived to pick up Earth, and they both ended up saying goodbye. After a long while, Earth arrived in another city and went to a tavern. However, he was completely disappointed to see that there were few missions in the area. The owner of the business told him that humans have practically left people without much work, so she offered him a job at the place, and Earth ended up accepting, but it turned out to be a total agony due to the workload involved in working there. In a scene change, we see the game developers talking about Juicy and Ryu, explaining that both of them initially had no emotions, but thanks to Earth, they have been developing them. They ultimately believe Earth is quite interesting, and he is one of the reasons why they will continue developing the game further. He is very relaxed, thinking that this is the kind of life he wants to have. Since he arrived in the game, he has only had a difficult life for having attracted attention in that world. He also thinks that he has done many things that he wouldn't have finished when he was younger in the real world, since clearly his body in real life is not as flexible as it is in One More Life. At that moment, Earth becomes somewhat sentimental and prefers to be surrounded by many people, since after all, this helps him to have his mind occupied and not think about so many silly things as he is doing now. Finally, Earth believes that he has met some truly great people in this world. Several hours pass. Earth arrives with Juicy and another subject, who introduces himself as one of the green dragons. The subject explains that they are wild dragons that can control the wind. Earth asks him if green dragons don't avoid contact with humans and the rest of the species, but he lets him know that green dragons are the exception to the rest. And these can even take human form and are sometimes sent as messages to other races. Earth then tells him that he doesn't understand why he is there. The dragon lets him know that it's related to the baby dragon, because even though they promise not to involve Earth anymore, they've had problems lately, since the baby dragon hasn't wanted to eat since he returned to his kingdom. This is because they need to eat a lot to grow big and strong, but the baby dragon only eats half. Furthermore, he begs the green dragons to teach him how to become human, which is completely impossible. Earth starts thinking about the problem and gets nervous when he remembers that he had fed him. This made the green dragon look confused, but Earth immediately showed him why the baby dragon wasn't eating, as he served one of the dishes to the subject and he was totally delighted. This made him ask Earth for more food, but Earth gets angry because they only treat him like a cook. The dragon apologized and begged Earth to please cook something for the baby dragon. But because he didn't have many ingredients, he jumped out the window and went to look for them. As the hours passed, Earth prepared a banquet for the baby dragon, and the man hurried off to his kingdom. Earth and Juicy were left alone, and he asked her to go to his bed by herself. But Earth is a total coward when he sees that she wants to do the deed. He runs away in a hurry, as he can't believe that the girl is such a pervert. A little while later, all the dragons were shocked to see that the baby dragon wouldn't stop eating. The baby's father was amazed to see that a mere human could have such a great impact on the dragons, so the message Earth gave him was clearly that he was quite the little chef. As the days passed, the green dragon tried to replicate Earth's food. He got sad because, despite his efforts, the food always turned out terribly. And we just saw that another green dragon was watching the subject through the window. In a scene change, we see the dragon watching his companion who went to the forest and became an old man named Emerald. He protests by logging into the game, but is shocked to see Juicy hugging him in his bed again, which causes Earth to beat her up at that moment. Shortly afterwards, he went out into the street, and everyone around him gives him their respect. He ran into Emer, and Earth tried to hide it and told her that he was someone else. So after saying a few words, Earth continued his journey. But not much time passed, and Juicy and Emerald appeared in front of him completely annoyed. This caused Earth to use his wind magic to escape the place and head to an inn to log off without being disturbed. The next day, Earth apologized to the receptionist, who appeared very nervous, as he showed Earth that the Queen had issued an arrest warrant for him. This enraged Earth, who arrived at the castle and broke down the door where she was. Earth, very angry, told Emerald that he wanted him to take back the ring he had given him since he was so upset and that he didn't want anything to do with the girl. Earth asks him what he will do if he refuses to leave, as Earth is asking, but he is so angry that he mentions that he would not hesitate to fight. Emerald is happy to hear these words and tells him that they will then resolve things outside. So after leaving, Emerald takes the form of a dragon and allows Earth to launch his first attack. But since it has no effect, Emerald launches into combat at that moment. After several movements, he managed to land a blow on Earth, and Earth decided to launch one of his best attacks, but it failed to pierce the dragon's scales, as they are as hard as steel. This caused Emerald to counterattack and damage Earth's shield, which clearly made him feel very bad, as they had shared many adventures together. However, he knows that as a human being, he has a lot of dignity, and he doesn't intend to give up so easily. Emerald began charging an attack, so Earth lunged at his head and threw several explosive potions into his mouth. This caused Earth's HP to drop considerably, and seeing that the dragon was wounded, he thought it was his opportunity. He believed it was the perfect moment to use the secret technique that Juicy had given him, so he unleashed the abilities of the 7 shooting stars. The dragon received many hits, but despite this, it survived, and Earth thinks that it wasn't enough to finish off the monster. At that moment, Emerald charged a powerful attack that destroyed everything around him and thought that the protector had been eliminated with said attack, but using wind magic, Stealth managed to hide behind a large rock. Earth at that moment thinks that he only has one trick up his sleeve and laments that with this attack he will lose the bow. At that moment, we see a very powerful aura begin to emanate from Earth and his weapon, and the dragon was shocked as it had thought that he had killed Earth. At that moment, Earth channeled all his will into a magic arrow that he created in that instant. So after several seconds of charging it, Earth decided to throw it, and Emerald created a wind barrier. Earth used all his strength and the attack ended up hitting. Despite this, Emerald was seriously injured, and because Earth could no longer fight because he ran out of bow, he decided to launch himself and finish off the dragon with several potions. In a parallel scene, the game developers are amazed that Earth won the battle against Emerald. One of them thinks that explosive potions should be nerfed, but another girl disagrees, because if they do, people will probably stop making potions. They are ultimately baffled by Earth when they see that despite the game simulating real pain, none of this stopped Earth. We then see Earth, His soul is observing everything that happened and thinks that he will revive in 2 minutes in the last place where he had rested. However, at that moment, the dragons arrived and with a special object to revive Earth. Earth says he doesn't understand why they chose to revive him instead of Emero. However, the red dragon apologized for the inconvenience, as Emero had become an arrogant dragon and mistreated all people and other species. He also explains to Earth that Emero threatened Juicy with destroying the cities, but instead captured him. This made Earth understand why an arrest warrant had been issued against him. The dragons let him know that they would also take care of Emero, but when they arrived, they found that the dragon had been defeated, so they would not have any problems against the dragon race. The dragon also told him that he hadn't paid him for the food he had given him, so he took out some treasures, which were a set of light dragon scale armor, plus $800,000 and also a very, very powerful mysterious bow. Without thinking twice, Earth uses the armor and thinks that it is too light compared to others that he has clearly used. He also looks at the bow they gave him and can't see his stats. The dragon lets him know that she was a powerful fairy who had been the only one able to face a battle, and after saying their last words, they said goodbye and left immediately. At that moment, Earth falls to the ground from exhaustion, so he calls the bird and she arrives immediately with Earth, so we see that she begins to take him somewhere else. While Earth thinks about how much fun he's been having since arriving in the world of video games, hours later, Earth arrives at one of the shops in the fairy kingdom and buys a magic cape. He also addressed the queen, as he felt he clearly owed her an apology. But Juicy was completely sad, and Earth remembers that some fairies had told him on the way to the queen that she was very sad because Earth had left in a rage the last time. At that moment, Earth speaks to the girl, and she is happy for a few moments. Earth makes it clear that the red dragon told him the whole truth about what happened, so he apologized at that time. Juicy also tells him that he had been misbehaving and tells him that he can ask for anything he wants, as she wants to repay his reward with a wish. Finally, Earth tells her that he wants her to seal his ring, since in the first place, he shouldn't have had any special benefits, and thanks her for everything she has done for him, since she has treated him very well. At that moment, Juicy seals Earth's powers, and then they say goodbye to each other and clearly tell each other that they will meet again sometime. Earth leaves the castle and thinks that he will return, since he knows that great adventures will be waiting for him and his friends. And that's how the anime ends.